Stand By Me is one of the standout 80s King adaptations that still holds up to scrutiny all these years later. It's a film that is recalled with fondness and is celebrated annually by die-hard fans. And that's no surprise, really. Stand By Me is a touching film that is relatable and beautifully presented. It's a film about friendship and the trials and tribulations of youth, but beyond that, it's a story about loss, self-loathing, and the end of innocence. And perhaps even more so, it's a commentary on the gradual, inevitable imposition of time as it encroaches on our lives. Hi there, I'm your host, Mr. Doyle, and this is a great undertaking. This is the 6th video in the Different Seasons series in which I will be discussing the 1986 film adaptation of the Stephen King novella, The Body. The film was, of course, instead entitled Stand By Me, and, well, it's hard to figure out just what I wanted to say about this movie. It's so close to the original story that I struggled to figure out what I could discuss regarding the film that I hadn't already said about the novella. But the more that I thought about it, the more depressingly obvious it became. Rather than impose my politics and ideology into this one, I'm going to get philosophical. Something I am not at all qualified to do, but before I get all sad boy pseudo-intellectual on you, let's talk about the film itself. History and background. As is so often the case with King adaptations, Stand By Me saw numerous script iterations, swapped directors, switched studios, lost and gained producers, and underwent innumerable changes in the years before the cameras would finally roll tape. Rob Reiner would ultimately go on to direct, and at the time he had only directed 2 films, one of which was the satirical classic comedy This Is Spinal Tap. Reiner felt a personal connection to the lead character Gordy, and he was actively involved in not only casting the roles of the 4 young protagonists, Gordy, Vern, Chris, and Teddy, he was responsible for the very real bond the young actors would develop and in turn bring that bond to the screen. In a 2011 interview with NPR, actor Will Wheaton recalled that Reiner had essentially found 4 actors who already embodied the characters they had been cast to play. Additionally, Reiner had the 4 young men, Wheaton, River Phoenix, Jerry O'Connell, and Corey Feldman, spend 2 weeks together working on their improvisation skills and building camaraderie, and it really shows throughout in the film. As far as child actors go, you'd be hard-pressed to find better, more natural, moving performances. Additionally, John Cusack and Kiefer Sutherland deliver reliably solid performances as well. Filming began in June of 1985 with a budget of approximately $8 million and wrapped 2 months later in August. The film hit theaters 1 year later in August of 1986 and grossed $52.3 million at the box office. Critics at the time were panned with reviews ranging from harsh to glowing. However, Stand By Me currently holds an impressive 91% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, so it appears to have withstood the test of time. The majority of the film was shot in Brownsville, Oregon, which was the perfect location to capture the look and feel of small-town 1950s America and the fictional town of Castle Rock. The town of Brownsville began holding an annual Stand By Me celebration in 2007, with July 23rd officially designated as Stand By Me Day by the Brownsville Chamber of Commerce. The movie put Brownsville on the map and has continued to be a source of tourism traffic for the tiny town, which boasts a population of less than 2,000 people. For anyone interested, there is a link. For anyone interested, there is a link in the description to a video detailing the events and origins of Stand By Me Day, the folks who make the pilgrimage to Brownsville, and the legacy of Brownsville. Time and distance. All right, now it's time to either get deeply philosophical or entirely nonsensical. I guess we'll see. In the film, the adult version of Gordy writes, quote, "I never had any friends later on like the ones I had when I was 12. Jesus, does anyone?" Unquote. And, well, that's obviously a question with differing answers depending on who you ask. Do I have friends now like I did when I was 12? Well, yeah, I suppose I do in a literal sense, considering a few of my friends now are literally those same people. But is the friendship between us the same after all these years, now that we're adults with jobs and families and responsibilities? Now that we are different people, are we still the same friends? Well, in that context, I suppose that is an entirely different question with an entirely different answer. While the friendship and camaraderie of the four lead characters is indeed the focus of the film, there is also an underlying theme of reluctant acceptance and begrudging understanding that the four young boys are very different people on very different paths. Though their individual circumstances have incidentally brought them together, they seem cognizant of the fact that they are likely destined to grow apart. There's an awareness that becomes more apparent to them throughout the course of the film that this bond, strong as it may be, is not meant to last. There is an acknowledgement that as time progresses, they will likely lose that unspoken, intrinsic connection, that they will grow and change independently of each other, that they will inevitably become increasingly distant not only from one another, but from the people they are themselves at that time in their lives. And that's one of the, not necessarily harsh, but perhaps inescapable truths that happens to us as we age and change, often imperceptibly. There isn't necessarily some defining moment or conscious decision made, but rather there is a slow erosion of our former selves and in turn a gradual realignment of our values, ideology, and identity. And as we change and become these previously unrealized individuals, we unavoidably shed the things, and in some cases the people, who tethered us to our former selves. We spend less and less time together. We develop our own tastes. We are guided and influenced not in isolation, but within communities. We are products of our environments, and those conditions and ecosystems in large part determine our futures, our experiences, and our opportunities. In turn, we are often divided by opportunity or by necessity. Those with means or obligations move away for educational or employment opportunities or other reasons. Families relocate and friendships end abruptly. The unpredictability of life in general has the power to separate and remove people from our timelines. And until recently, keeping in touch was much more difficult. But our online relationships with those we were once close to, our interacting from afar in small, insignificant ways, rarely, if ever, has the ability to maintain those in-person relationships and experiences we had with those same people during our formative years. This is all anecdotal, of course, and I have no doubt that plenty of adults have maintained meaningful, lasting relationships with those same friends from their adolescence. But in my experience, those friendships, while some of them remain intact, aren't the same friendships or the same friends they once were. So I suppose in my case, no. I don't have friends now like I did back then. That's not to say I don't have close, important relationships and friendships. They're just not like those formative relationships back in the day. Final thoughts. Stand By Me is an enjoyable film and an excellent adaptation of the source material. The message and story are timeless, the characters and acting are believable, the setting is quaint, and the overall experience is moving. Unlike many films of its era, it still holds up. You should watch it. I recorded a cover of the titular song Stand By Me just for fun, and been playing throughout this video in the background. If you'd like to listen to the full version with the vocals, I've uploaded that as a separate video. Next week, we will be on to the final video in the Different Seasons series, in which I will be discussing the fourth and final novella from Different Seasons, entitled The Breathing Method. The Breathing Method is unquestionably the most disturbing story from the collection, and easily one of the darkest King stories of King's career. Well, that's redundant. Up to this point. And that is really saying something. New videos drop on this channel every Saturday at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, so give that subscriber bell a little finger tickle to get notifications. Okay, goodbye. Be sure to click like and subscribe to the channel for my continued analysis of all things Stephen King, pretty please with blood and guts on top. My name is Mr. Doyle, and this has been a great undertaking.